Hi, and welcome to the Family Ties podcast. I am Julia Avery, and this is my sister and co-host,
Kelley Richey. Hi, guys. It's us again.
Yeah. Hey. So today is our part 2 of our episodes on loneliness, the effects of loneliness and isolation. And this episode is going to be more focused on our ideas and solutions for that and community, etc. Today we'll be focusing on community and the benefits of connecting with others and some of the solutions to fighting loneliness and isolation. So, Kelley, you've got some research on this subject. Why don't you take it away?
Well, Julia, my question to you is, why don't you have any research? Like, the hell? I'm starting to feel a little bit used over here.
Well, I feel like...
Answer!
So these were your ideas, and you already did a lot of research on it when you presented it to me.
Julia,
no
it's
research
supposed to
on
be
my end
50-50.
was needed. No research was needed.
Julie, okay, well, you know.
When you send me a concept and an idea, and you've got, here's this website, and here's this website, and here's this website, and here are pictures from the book I've been reading. There's a lot of material, and it's like, there's nothing for me to research. You got it all.
Julia,
we got plenty to discuss right there.
Julia, seeing as my abilities to do anything on the internet, it is sketchy at best. It is not, I'm really bad with technology, guys. I can't overstate it. But we're going to go into solutions. So it doesn't really take too much research. Thankfully, I have some tips from someone who knows about this kind of stuff. He is the CEO of the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen. So Mike Viking can tell us more about it. But Julia, I really fully expect you next time to just fully, just fill in the gaps, because I will always miss a few things.
Oh, God.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's start. Oh, poop. I just dropped my papers, guys. Hold on.
We're
on it. We're doing so good.
Damn.
Thank goodness I numbered these pages so I could get my life back in order.
That's your karma for trying to call me out on air.
Oh, please. Anyways, guys. So... we're talking about ways that we can go forward, like after this is all over, and then with the COVID-19, but also some things that you can do right now. So if you are in a household with roommates or family members, here are a few tips on how to kind of recreate this feeling of community and not just rely on technology or close ourselves off. My first tip, and Julia will follow with hers, my first tip is breaking bread together. So in the book, Julia's laughing at me because I like to read books, okay?
No, I'm like, okay, what's my first point?
Oh, gosh. Okay, anyway, the little book of... Luca, guys, is so mind-blowingly good and such an easy read. But one of the things that I wrote down was that we should break bread together. No phones at the table. He suggests if you have a family with kids, maybe light some candles, kind of make it a special occasion. Like as a kid, I remember really loving to set the table really nice. It just felt a little bit cooler. I don't know, putting candles at the table, a tablecloth on.
It was very ritualistic. It's about creating an experience, and that's what makes it way more enjoyable and kind of, piques the interest, especially with kids. When you have a ritual set and this is what we do for dinner, we all gather together or with friends or family. It's an experience, and when you set the table and you light the candles, it brings everybody together in a very special way.
I agree. Last week, Thomas and I agreed to do a date night where we got dressed up. I know it sounds silly, guys, but we got dressed up and we fixed a really nice dinner. I set the table. He cooked because he is such a chef. And then we just sat there, and it was I think we spent at least an hour and a half at the table. And what Mike says in the book is that food nurtures more than our physical bodies. It feeds our friendships, bolsters our bonds, and nourishes our sense of community. And those factors are vital to our happiness. And it is true. When we tend to eat alone or we eat in front of the television, it's just certain things happen where it no longer is a special event. Maybe we're just heating up a TV dinner. So it's good to have, it's We're not saying you have to do this every night, but kind of make an occasion every once in a while if you can. He also says that Danes are not only among the happiest in the world, but they're also among the ones who meet most often with their friends and family and trust that their friends will catch them if they fall. And I mean, I think that's something that I couldn't say for myself, that I have that.
Yeah. I don't either. But since I've moved, I don't really have any friends yet in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. But back in Greenville, I did have a couple of friends where we would get together for dinner. They'd make dinner. And it was just, food really does bring people together. And as you're eating, it's creating a special experience. And you're able to share and to really just connect with each other. It's really beautiful, actually.
Do you want to go on a trip, Julia? Do you want to go on
what kind of trip?
We're going to go visit France really fast.
Let's go. Let's take this trip.
So food in France.
On our cheap COVID-19 tickets.
Yes, let's do it. Food in France is no joke. I mean, we kind of all know they're kind of the culinary pinnacle, but it is about sitting down and eating calmly together, their tradition of eating food together. The French spend the most time eating each day, and despite its population having 3 courses and spending all that time at the table, France still has some of the lowest obesity levels in Europe. So, and I remember this when I was in France with the De La Rue de Cans, that they would make every meal. It was important. They all gathered together. They discussed things. And of course, you know, after dinner, you have the digestif. You have the drink, like a kind of a heavier liquor, and you just sit around the fire and talk. And they were super close with their parents. Like, they would just sit there and chat with them. So the meal is super important. And, you know, it's interesting that even though they spend all that time at the table, they're still moving. It's not like it's all about just gluttony.
Right. And the other point that you were talking about with like sitting in front of the TV by yourself, even if you're not by yourself and you and your significant other or roommates sit together at the TV, there's something about the TV that affects the way in which you eat. Whether you overeat because you're distracted and you're not even focused on when it's time to stop. And sometimes you're not focusing on eating properly, like chewing slowly, etc. So even like healthy eating is impacted by not having that ritual, not sitting and really focusing on the experience, and you're just distracted and zoning out, and it's not a good habit.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just one part of it, but here's something that I found interesting, and I think it has to do with community, not food. So let's travel back to Denmark. I'm just going to read this little page because it had jumped out at me and I've already forgotten why it did. But it's called The Good Life and the Common Good. So in the past 5 years, I'm quoting, Mike says, I've spoken to more than 1,000 people about why Denmark and Scandinavia more generally do well in the happiness ranking. Often people will say Danes pay some of the highest taxes in the world, so why are they happy? And yes, Denmark has one of the highest tax rates in the world. The average income in Denmark is about $47,000 per year, and the average Dane pays around 45% in income taxes. If you make more than $73,500 per year, there is an additional tax rate, making it 52% over the threshold. However, I believe the Danes are happy not despite the high taxes, but because of the high taxes. And most Danes would agree. Almost 9 out of 10 people living in Denmark say they happily pay their taxes, according to a Gallup survey undertaken in 2014. It's all about knowing that happiness does not come from owning a bigger car, but from knowing that everybody you know and love will be supported in their time of need. What works well in the Nordic countries is an understanding of the link between the good life and the common good. We are not paying taxes, we are purchasing quality of life. We are investing in our community.
I love that.
Wow.
And you know what's interesting about that is people that are against the idea of really feeding into the community with their own money is, you know, a lot of times they focus on people that abuse the system, and that's their excuse for not supporting that way of life. They're like, well, I don't want to pay for somebody to not work when I'm over here busting my butt. And it's not the point. And you can't focus on the few, the outliers, the people that do take advantage. You have to focus on the bigger picture. And I think a lot of people, if they actually grew up in that system that you were just speaking to, mm-hmm. they would totally understand and be able to support it. But once you've started in a capitalist society and, you know, if you've had any success, you're less likely to support that idea because you're like, oh, well, I'm fine. You know, you haven't had to deal with it and you're like, I want what I make. It's kind of selfish.
Well, it's kind of like what you were saying a few weeks ago about how until it affects you, kind of like that meme you sent me. Until it affects you, it's not a problem. Everybody else needs to abide by these rules that you don't have any problems with. Until it affects you, it's not a problem. But I think we are all suddenly seeing in this time of need just how like Bernie dropping out has been really devastating to me, because it's like we're seeing with this pandemic just how much all of the talking points he has pounded away at before we even really knew who he was is so vital and important now. And I hate that the US has kind of tacked him as some kind of socialist. He's talking about points this man Mike is talking about, and it's about just the general good of everyone. Socialism means that you don't own wealth, you don't own private businesses, there is no free market, it's all controlled by the government. But that's not at all what Bernie is saying. But if we paid higher taxes, but I had the benefits of going into the doctor whenever I felt sick, I don't go to the doctor when I feel sick most of the time, because I can't even comprehend having to pay all of these bills, because they'll always want to do testing, they'll always want to do this. So a lot of us are in that same boat.
So it's not the idea of enforcing socialism necessarily. It's elements of socialism that have proven to work, because there are lots of programs and systems that have been working for us here in the US that are pure examples of why elements of socialism work to build community and support community.
But there's also some misunderstanding around that, because those countries and the Nordic countries like to speak on it as not socialism because they did fight to tear down socialism, but they consider it to be a free market system. And that's what I want to try and rephrase my thinking and my verbiage around, because that's what it is. It's not socialism. It's about a free market.
And I agree. There's no, when I hear you say free market, I don't associate it with the socialist elements that we're talking about. I really think about it specifically to, capitalism versus free market, and financially versus the programs that work. Like, for instance, firefighters are an example of socialism. Our taxpayers' money going to support, and obviously there are lots of volunteers and firefighting. So, our taxpayer money doesn't even cover half of it. There are lots of volunteers who support being firefighters, but that idea of our money going towards something to help the community.
Yeah. I think the reason that I'm pushing back against the word socialism is because when I read this Finnish lady's discussion on it and how much they actually hate being called the socialist nanny country or nation, when
what other word do we use?
The free market, because that's what it is like, if you pay higher taxes for these other benefits that everybody can benefit from, not just the rich and not just the poor, everybody has to pay their fair share. And I realize I'm doing the Bernie thing with my hands, so I'm like their fair share. So from now on, I'm going to try and call it the free market system, because that's not what the U.S. has. We, as capitalists, the only people benefiting right now are people in the upper class and then the 1%ers. It is not, the middle class has been disappearing. But going back to the good of everybody, that's kind of the whole point, is having the common good of everyone in mind, because it shows that we have humanity and empathy. And I think that's something that as Americans, we are really, really doing poorly in.
And the thing is, you shouldn't confuse it with it meaning less success for you.
Right.
I know people often have the idea of if they sacrifice something for the greater good, that means they sacrifice their success. And that's not what that means. It doesn't mean you're not able to make more money, to be more successful, to build your own business, etc. It just means
you're free to do better, because you don't have all these things looming over your head, like college tuition and student loans, all of these things that cripple us with, and our medical debt. I think the whole point is that we have a president who's the leader of a party that likes to pretend they want less government, but then he wants to be an authoritarian dictator. He is friends with lots of dictators, and those two things don't go hand in hand. If you want to monitor the media and you want to shut them down and kind of silence people, that's not what you guys say you stand for at all.
And when everybody has equal opportunity and is supported, the economy thrives.
Even black and brown people, Julia?
God. Kelley.
I know. I know that sounds awful, but I'm being serious because
No.
that's how our world is right now still.
When people make more money, they spend more money, typically.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the economy is like, ooh, hey.
Right?
Ooh, that feels good. Keep it coming.
If I didn't have to pay off my student loans and all these medical bills, guess what? I'd be putting it into what? The economy. I'd be buying things, maybe taking vacations, investing in things that are good for everyone. So we'll leave it at that,
Yes.
folks. Not the episode, just that point. Something that really jumped out at me, and I talked to you, Julie, about this because I was so excited. But it's called, I'll butcher this word, a buffalscab. Buffalscab?
If you just send me the spelling, I'll probably butcher it worse than you.
Okay.
I am so good at fucking up words and names. So good.
It's basically called, it's essentially a co-housing scheme. And by co-housing, I mean that there's houses that kind of form a circle around a common space. And these communities are extremely
We
popular.
swapped places today.
Yeah, I know. I can't even speak. It's basically like a compound and live in their own private homes, but they have like an open door policy. Like kids can run from house to house. Everybody knows each other. It's a community where basically, if they feel like it, he says, from Monday to Thursday, the families eat together. Usually there are between 30 and 40 people at these dinners. A meal for an adult costs around what we would say is $3.20, and those for kids are half price. So to give you an idea of how little this is, he says that a cafe latte in Copenhagen will set you back 40 kroner. So that's like double what like a meal at one of these little communal places would be. So basically basically 1 week every 6 months or so, they form part of the crew who prepares dinner, and the older kids help out and learn how to cook. The food shift usually takes 3 hours from preparing the food until the dishes are finished. So it's about bringing people together, sharing meals together, sharing chores, gardening together, and sharing each other's lives, and being there to babysit if so-and-so needs to go on a date. You know, it's not like everybody lives in one house. It's very communal.
They still have their own space, but they're still connected. You know, it reminds me of the feeling I had every time I was involved in some sort of camp.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be horse camp or when I went to Camp Lucan. Yeah, it was a church camp, but I just loved getting to be with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some activities where, like, you know, in both camps that I went to, there were ways that you contributed and helped kind of some chores. Whether at horse camp, you know, you helped clean some stalls, or you raked the hallways, you helped tack up horses, etc. You were still contributing, and it just felt so satisfying. And then every camp that I was finished with, I just felt this void inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always like very disappointing, you know, going back home and knowing next day I wasn't going to camp again.
Well, that communal feeling of like sharing a cabin with your bunk mates, having your cleanup and then your quiet time at night, and then you have a routine in the morning, like you guys all go to the showers at this time.
I still value personal space and like having my own home, but I miss the idea of also being still very close to others, and that, you know, we participate, we'll eat together. The different chores and activities that we do benefits everybody, supports everybody in the activity we'll be doing together, etc.
Now, it doesn't mean that everybody there comes from the same economic background and makes the same amount and has all the same things. We're not talking about that kind of brouhaha. It would be my idea of heaven for all of us girls to have our own buffalscab, where Julia's looking like, you sure about that word? I'm really not sure about that word. But like,
it's probably way better than what I'd say.
Julie, just imagine 5 little houses just kind of around a shared garden space.
Aww.
There's chickens, a little
goats,
and a horse or
pygmy
two,
goats.
and we just kind of all have our routine. And then maybe once a week, it's not like every day, but maybe once a week we all pitch in and everybody has a meal at so-and-so's house. Next week is dinner at Janet's and we all pitch in and help. And
well, and it'd even be cool with like food prepping if like every Sunday the little buffalscab, everybody contributed towards that next week's food prep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
getting everything ready to go for whenever everybody went to work, etc. Stuff like that. Community garden.
That's great.
Fresh ingredients.
I know that last time we talked a lot about the older folks having trouble with loneliness and kind of a lack of purpose. And this also jumped out at me about Boffelscobs, like the place where his friend grew up, Mike's friend. The design of the Boffelscob encourages social interaction and attracts single elderly people who want to live neither in isolation nor in conventional housing for old people. And families gain when raising their kids and working at a career by living in a supportive environment.
I think it's also really important to make sure that elders are not isolated to just being around other elders.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that they also thrive around younger people.
Yeah.
And young energy.
Yeah.
So if like these Boffelscobs had like a little splattering of different age groups, some similar, obviously, because some people really gravitate and connect more with people their own age sometimes. But for community wise, I think it would also be great. Can you imagine some kids around elders in the garden?
Yes.
You know,
that would be, and you imagine just like Kira running around and we get to teach her how to garden. And you and me get to teach her how to ride a horse. And
hell yeah.
Oh, man, Julie, let's get this figured out. Let's figure out where we're going to make this Boffelscob happen. But guys, essentially, these kinds of communities are havens for people who are looking for supportive environments for their kids and to elderly relatives who are in danger of falling into social isolation. So I think that's really what kind of struck me is we tend to forget the elderly and the fact that even like our grandparents, your quality of life goes down the minute you get put into a home. You tend to feel forgotten. It can be extra isolating. That change, it's not easy. So kind of giving them a place to have some purpose, whether it be a mentor or just feel involved and feel cared about, I think is the key.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gives you different perspective on life and it changes everything. And when you're part of something, you know, especially with a group of people more than just like outside of yourself, you have more purpose. Because like I know when I am all by myself, like I've lived alone and felt very alone, but anytime that I've volunteered or been part of another activity, it's given me this fresh perspective and just invigorated feeling about life, everything, because I feel more involved. I feel like I have more purpose and I feel more connected with others around me.
That also kind of speaks to those of us who do live alone. So Mike asks from the book, of course, he poses the question, do you know the names of your neighbors? And would you call any of them your friends? We had a conversation about this last time. I've been leaving stuff on my neighbor Claire's doorstep. I'm about to actually leave her a present today. And it's something where I can't wait for this all to be over with because we're going to have I'm going to invite her over for dinner or, you know, get to really know her. And that's the whole thing that will make me feel even more connected to at least just where I'm at physically.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, a lot of people have concerns about safety, home safety. I think the closer you are with those around you, the safer you also feel.
Yes.
And, you know, the more attentive others might be about what's going on at your house. Like when you're gone on vacation or whatever, and they might notice something suspicious because, you know, we're all invested in each other at some point. And I feel like it also emphasizes safety as well. So.
You are so smart because he does talk about that too. I left it out of my notes, but he does mention that. He gives us 5 ideas on how to plant a community. And the first one is create a directory for your street or your stairway. So basically kind of going from door to door, getting everybody's names and writing down something about them that's unique to kind of like, oh, I'm good at this. So that if something were to arise, like, oh, the handyman is Jeff down the street at, 2235. And just kind of having those notes to be able to...
Thomas, your boyfriend Thomas, would be one of the most important neighbors in my life.
Yes.
Because I'd be like, he's the guy who knows food.
Oh my goodness though, Julia, I told him last night, I said, how are you even? Because he knows something about everything. It's like every fact he's ever heard, he remembers.
That's amazing.
It makes me both jealous and amazed.
Because I have read a lot.
Yeah.
I have tried to learn a lot. Have I retained it? No.
Hey, Thomas wouldn't need these notes that I'm reading off of. I'm so lame, you guys.
No, you're not. Well, we all have different ways of learning, and we all have different memory constructs.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Constructs. I like that word.
I do too. I like that a lot. It sounds super smart.
Yeah.
So here's our challenge. Before we go any further in these steps, we challenge you to do these 5 ways to plant a community in your community or in your apartment complex or just in your building, because I know some apartment complexes are sprawling.
And this time right now with quarantining might actually be the perfect opportunity to help support each other, because people are either being furloughed, laid off from work. Some may have still have a job. We've got some very different elements that kind of come together where it makes it even more important that we come together, even though we have to be, social distancing.
You could leave a note. You could leave a note with your email address or something in their mailbox.
You can create a Facebook page for your neighborhood where people can safely interact and reach out about stuff that they need.
Nextdoor is a great app you can use. I've used it before. Almost went to a community, like someone down the street who just moved in, this couple who had a Harry Potter themed party. But the reason I didn't go is because children were invited and costumes were like mandatory. And I just didn't want to. I couldn't. All I had to read was kids are highly recommended to come. And I was like, I think I need to skip this one. I'm going to sit this one out. But Nextdoor, I think, is what it is. Yeah.
Nextdoor. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That sounds brilliant. Bloody brilliant.
So it's already there. You just can start a post and kind of try and reach out to people around you, and the word of mouth can spread it. Or like we said, leave something in their mailbox, like a little form, just kind of saying what you're trying to do. If they don't want to be involved, fine, whatever. That's sad, but maybe they'll change their mind.
You know what? I'm going to do that here.
Yeah.
I might make some new friends.
Exactly. And then step 2, Julia. Excited. I mean, I'm already smiling, so this is way better than last week. Establish a book lending cupboard. So, those people who have like those little birdhouses out in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah. With like a little, you leave a book and you take a book. And, what I would even say is to up that. Leave notes on the book that you read. That way whoever picks it up next gets to read your comments on it.
That is so cool. All right, piggybacking off of that idea, there is a library. I read about this library where it's not about books, but it's about these sketchbooks. And people go and they'll see what other people have sketched and drawn or artwork, and then you can also do your own. And it's just a library of everybody's collective artwork.
What?
It's so
That's
cool.
Amazing. I like that.
Yeah.
So you could add one of those books, almost like a binder, a 3-ring binder that people can kind of add things to, like with page protectors, because people get rough, okay? And you can Clorox that pretty easily. That sound was
sound
me
effects really
cleaning,
made that real.
Yeah, cleaning shiny plastic. Step 3, guys. Use the soft edges. What are soft edges, you ask? Front gardens and porches are soft edges. They feel safer and people tend to stay in them longer. Like this couple that I passed, it was an older couple that they were sitting out in their front lawn in lawn chairs, and they were just saying hello to everyone as they walked by. And that's or a lady who was gardening in the neighborhood. She didn't look at me, but that's another way for people to kind of start impromptu conversations with their neighbors or people in their community, is kind of, I'm out here gardening. Hi, what's up? What's going on? You see someone passing by. Engage. Yeah. Don't just see a person passing.
That's so cool. And
yeah.
And the thing is, I have noticed, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I feel like people are very receptive when you are open and friendly and the first to initiate, because I feel like a lot of people actually do crave a friendly connection. It's just there are times where I'm afraid to say anything because somebody might look unapproachable, or they might look like they don't want to be bothered. But also I have to take consideration that I have a terrible resting bitch face. It's a real thing.
Well, apparently the Danish, even though they are the happiest in the world, they have resting bitch face all the time. They don't look happy, even though they are.
Well, and it's a sign of happiness because Listen, your face is relaxed.
Right.
When you've got resting bitch face, the muscles in your face are relaxed and they're not tense. So that's technically a sign of happiness because you're not tensed up and you're not, hee, always forced to smile because it's not natural. It's not.
But yes, do smile at people. But here's the thing. My eyebrows are always like furrowed because I'm concentrating. I feel like when I'm thinking, everybody knows I'm thinking. And then it can translate as something's wrong. Thomas is always like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I am thinking thoughts that are not bad, but I'm just thinking.
Oh my God, I would do that at work all the time. And somebody would walk up to my cube and I would, I lean forward and I get closer to what I'm reading because I'm very into it and concentrating. I'm really concentrating. And so they'd walk up and I'm like, nose is really close to the computer screen and I'm like scowling and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, hey, nothing.
I'm fine.
I'm just walking, just thinking.
Step 4, guys. Build a community garden, he says. There's a wonderful story in here of a couple who moved from, I think they moved from Australia to the States, but they followed these steps and they have their own really great story and suggestions. And it's so wonderful, but I can't remember the exact details. But they built a community garden and it totally got everybody interacting and loving on each other. So then, like, that may be a little difficult to do if you're in an apartment complex or you don't have green space that's yours. So that's a best case scenario type idea, but it's an idea.
Yeah. So in your research, Kelley, on community gardens, did you come across any ideas like how to find out where to properly do one, like the rules, or like how to find the space where it's okay to do that? Or
usually it's by somebody offering up a space that they have or asking permission to, asking your local city council or whatever permission for a space. But I would say, like here in my community, I would like to offer my garden, but that would mean I'd have to unlock my back fence, and it's a privacy fence, so there are some limitations. But, I could do one in the front yard.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, would your landlord be okay with you digging up and doing that kind of thing? So maybe we can do some more research and post links to that on our website for those interested.
That might not be a step that most of us can do, but it is a thought.
Yeah.
Or everybody has like a raised garden type of thing, like one type of vegetable that you grow and everybody can come and pick from it.
Kelley!
Hi!
I love that.
I like that too.
Genius.
Wow. Sometimes.
And it's way easier to manage because you're not on your knees getting all uncomfortable. And I know my joints hurt. So like a raised garden sounds great.
Or even just, I have roses in my front bed. If I wanted to be the person who grew tomatoes, I could put those in there with some stakes and people coming by the front could just walk up and grab tomatoes when they need them. Hopefully people in the community, not just strangers, but that's fine too. Whatever. Food's food.
Greater good, Kelley.
Yes, for the greater good. Number 5, start a tool sharing program. So people like me don't have all the special tools or the knowledge of how to use them.
And they're expensive.
They are expensive, yes. So that's the whole point, is to see what everybody has. And it does encourage more interaction to kind of figure out who has what, make that list, and know who you can contact when you need help or need a tool.
Hell yeah. Kelley, those are awesome.
Thanks, Julie. I didn't make them up, but I would love to take credit for them.
But you shared them.
Yeah. Share this. Just do what you can do, guys. You may not be able to do all of these. Maybe pick one. Start there. The whole goal is to get out into your community and get to know people and to be a support to others. Another idea is take a street and turn it into a community challenge. So Julia and I have not told you about this, Julia, but I was thinking that we could have a challenge between the two of us. This will take time, but which one of us will get the most connections and actual interactions with people who are down for it?
Oh.
Do you want a little competition?
Yeah.
With COVID, we have to be super creative, but I think we can do it.
Yes. I think this is great. Sometimes, negative situations really force you to focus on bringing out as much positive as possible and get creative about it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Let's do it, Kelley.
Yay!
Game on.
Game on. All right, hold on. I'm going to read you something else because I'm really good at reading other people's words, just not coming up with my own original thoughts most of the time.
Dude, this smoothie, guys. So I was struggling with a headache today. It was so bad. and I've felt so drained, and you can tell through the start of the episode to right now how much more energy I have. I got a pure recharge smoothie from Smoothie King, and I'm like ready to go. And so the beginning, I'm like really trying to muster up whatever I can get out. And I'm like having a hard time with words. And I'm just like, Kelley, you do it. And then now I'm like, ooh, yay. You guys went on this energy journey with me.
You know, I think that's great.
Shit.
That's
That's
awesome.
really good, by the way.
So this, I don't know how much of this I'll actually get through, but this starts by saying, back in 2000, Harvard professor and political scientist Robert Putnam published Bowling Alone about the decline of American civil society. Putnam's diagnosis was that Americans were engaging less and less with their communities, and this was damaging American society as a whole. Americans were far less likely to participate in volunteer work, go to church, know their neighbors, invite friends home, go to bars, join unions, or just spend time hanging out with friends and their cats. This is part of the reason why over the past decades, countries like the US have become richer but have at the same time experienced a drop in the happiness levels. The US does not score very high on the happiness. I think we're like 18. Across the world, we seem to be looking for happiness in all the wrong places. To make matters worse, this is not a US thing, but a global thing. We human beings are happier when we feel connected with others, and so far, I have yet to discover a more powerful force to explain human happiness than the fulfillment of our longing for love, friendship, and community. So people want to belong, but they are not exactly sure how to make it happen.
Yeah.
This challenge has become even bigger with the advance of technology, which Julie and I have been stressing a lot of our concerns over lately. He says, we are connecting like never before, yet we still feel alone. Our relationships are complicated, they are demanding, and they are messy, so we attempt to clean them up with technology. We prefer calling someone to meeting them in person, and would rather text than call. We are drawn in by the illusion of connection without the demands of intimacy. And while there are positive aspects of social media, for example, keeping in touch when geographically apart, we find that people who reduce their consumption of social media are happier and connect more in the real world. In 2015, he says, we ran an experiment at the Happiness Research Institute. We asked participants about different dimensions of happiness and then randomly allocated the participants either to a control group, which continued to use Facebook as usual, or a treatment group, which did not use Facebook for a week. When the week had passed, we asked the participants to evaluate their lives once more. What we found was the treatment group reported significantly higher levels of life satisfaction. The people in that group also reported higher levels of enjoyment in life and felt less lonely, and not using Facebook led to an increase in their social activity and their satisfaction with their social lives. Further study is needed to understand the long-term effects of such an intervention, but for now, it's another piece of evidence demonstrating that while digital technologies are still in their infancy, we too are still in our infancy in terms of our ability to use them.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? I'm sorry.
That's
I just
amazing.
spewed that at you guys, but I felt it was really important because I feel like that describes why I stopped social media, my interaction with it. I didn't cancel any pages or shut anything down permanently. I just don't go on at all, ever. I mean, ever. And I can tell you my satisfaction has gone through the roof as far as I'm reading more. I'm not exactly watching more television. My television is decreased, but I'm trying to participate with my world more.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And we could even have a whole episode devoted towards that topic alone. So there's a lot of science to back that up. But virtual relationships take less energy, and it's less of an experience. And, you know, kind of to circle back to the very first point that we were making, which was the ritual of, you know, food, bringing people together, or an experience of friendship and connecting with others, is, you know, virtual relationships and virtual platforms don't have an experience. And it's not tangible. It's not real.
And in this world, I know everybody's going to be on social media, and you can't necessarily do what I've done, and that's fine. But Mike encourages us to take some tech-free periods during the week to detox digitally. And I think Skylar's been doing that, you know, not putting your phone down and not even knowing where it is for the day occasionally, but it's more about...
Now, there are pros about social media.
Right.
But there are so many cons, and it's definitely good to take those breaks and have time where you're really focusing on real life experiences and refocusing your energy.
Yes. This brings me to, I think, my last big point that I really was struck by. And it's, if money and happiness were to describe their relationship on Facebook, it would read, it's complicated. So going from technology into money. So guess what? This is the last thing I'm going to read for you. Yes. This is the last thing I'm going to read to you guys. So from the book, I think this is the last thing I'm going to read. But he says, the U.S. is a key example when it comes to looking at how we have failed to transform wealth into well-being. While the U.S. has achieved economic progress and an accumulation of wealth over the past half-century, this has not resulted in an increase in happiness for the people. One of the reasons for this is inequality. If a country doubles its wealth, but 90% of that wealth goes to the richest 10%, that is not growth. That is greed. And no, Gordon Gekko, when it comes to happiness, greed is neither good nor does it work. And your braces look stupid. So I love that.
Nice. That is a perfect segue for the next episode.
I agree. Stay tuned, guys. But back to happiness, because that's going to be a tough one, a tough topic. I want to hear an idea that you have, Julia, for increasing happiness. What's been working for you before I continue to just hog this research with all this book stuff?
Okay, and it kind of ties into community. So I came from living alone to then moving in with my sister, brother-in-law, and niece. And even though I contribute in only a very small way, I feel so much satisfaction and connection to them by being able to do little things like I like getting the dishes done. I like taking care of the animals. I like helping watch Kira and play with her. And so I've had an element of community interaction that has really been satisfying. So even if your first step is just building community within your own home, I think it's important to start within before going out. So evaluate your home life before you start trying to incorporate everybody outside of your family or your home. Because, if you're better within, you'll be able to share more. It's like on the airplane, put the mask on before you help the child next to you or someone next to you. Same thing with this. Community starts at home.
Yeah, I agree completely. Nicely put, Julia. Okay, I'm going to do a challenge for everybody. So Julia and I are going to have our own personal challenge with our neighborhood and community. But here is the ultimate thing that I'm really excited about. So he also provides us with 5 random acts of kindness to do this week. A couple of them I've actually been doing consistently, so it feels good to know that. And it does. There is such a satisfaction that comes from doing these things. So number 1 is leave a gift on someone's doorstep. So that's for this week going ahead. See what you can do. 2, learn the name of the person at the front desk or someone else you see every day. Greet them by name. So I know all the people I work with because I'm cool like that. No, it's because it's a small company and now we have only 5 people.
Oh, yeah, you better know their names, Kelley. All right, sorry.
Number 3, make 2 lunches and give one away. Maybe after, my note says maybe after Rona. So, yeah, people might not want to take it. Or maybe just, instead of doing that, just hand a pre-bagged thing of Cheez-Its or something. I don't know.
Or, they've got prepackaged meals in the deli.
Ooh.
People are way more comfortable with taking food from you that you did not make yourself at home.
Exactly.
So if you get yourself a grilled chicken wrap from the deli, grab a second one, offer that up.
Candy, cookies, and cheese are the quickest way to my heart, guys. Just saying. Even if it's string cheese, throw it at me. I'll take it all. Number 4.
Gimme.
Talk to the shy person who's by themselves at a party or the office. So I've done number 1. I've left a gift. And then there's a dude that works for the distribution center who he looks exactly like Tom Cruise, but he's cripplingly shy and he's super sweet. So I was like, okay, I know it makes him uncomfortable every time I say hello, but I'm going to tell him something nice. And I just told him, you have made this place look so good over the past few weeks. I'm really impressed. You're an MVP for distro.
Good.
And he smiled and he said, thanks. So
That's awesome.
Oh, I'd combined 2 things. So I've done 3 out of 5, guys. Wow. It says 5, give someone a genuine compliment right now. Julia, you look beautiful. You look so beautiful.
Guys, she's fucking lying.
Julia, you do look beautiful. I mean, have you seen all my gray hair? You look put together. You look like you're not suffering too badly.
Again, she's lying, y'all. But that's so nice. So gracious. And Kelley, gray hair does not mean less beautiful. I love gray hair.
Well, thank you. You know what really speaks to me? The last thing I've got written down in my notes is that
Kelley, I didn't get to throw a compliment at you.
Okay.
I was just correcting your negative self-comment.
Oh.
Here's my genuine compliment for
Okay.
you. I am impressed with the research and thoughtfulness that you put into everything that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You work hard, and it shows.
You do too, man. Julie, I'm so glad you did this today.
Me too.
Julia gets to take up the whole last portion of this, but this is the last thing I'm going to say from the book. He says to be like Amelie. And Julia and I have both seen Amelie in the past, and we freaking love it.
It's so good.
So basically just trying to do those, I'm clapping like you can see it, do those random acts of kindness. And I don't know, it's so joyful to see her bringing these people together and returning things to an old man that were from his childhood that meant a lot to him. If we can try and take lessons in being better people, guys, we need it desperately. Just look around you. Try not to look at the news too much, but we can do better. We should.
Agreed. Okay. Well, so that concludes our loneliness and isolation 2-parter. For more information, for links to resources about things that we've talked about and resources, you can visit our website, www.thefamilytiespodcast.com. It'll have everything you need, one-stop shop, social media links, etc. And you can read up about us, post comments, post stories. You can send us information, and if you relate to topics or if you have new ideas on how to connect with your community, etc., share them with us. Hell
And
yeah.
photos too, if you've got a community garden or something.
Also, new request, send us pictures of your animals, please.
Please, we just like the creatures. If you're in the
I
photo
feel like
too, that's
we need
fine.
to have the family ties, the furry fam. The family ties needs an extension, the furry fam, where we have everybody's pictures of their furry family.
Julia, see, you do have ideas.
I just want to see people's dogs.
And
Yeah.
horses and birds and bunnies.
Birds. Snakes. I like snakes.
You like snakes. Heather's a vet. Our sister's a vet, and she'll send us pictures of her, like, with this cute little bat. Although right now I think bats are probably, like, the most hated animal.
Too soon, Kelley. Too
Oh,
soon.
I didn't mean it. I just meant that it was a cute bat she was holding.
It was.
It was all Heather's fault.
But yeah, send us pictures of your animals, and you know what? We'll incorporate that in our social media posts. If you want us to share, pictures of your furry family, send us pics, and we'll put it on our social media.
Nice. Well, that's it for today, guys. Join us next week. We can't wait to talk to you again. But like Julia said, go join the family.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.